group down there in Miami. Them Cubans dominate down there. Now let's look at who benefits from immigration. Who are the groups that support illegal immigration, and who really benefits from the open border policy in the U.S.? We have to look to who benefits from what the Romans call quiberno, which means to whom is it a good thing? To whom is it an advantage for these people to come over the southern border illegally? Number one is foreign governments seeking political and financial stability. Check this out.
What explains it all? Is there a war against citizens? Is there a desire for illegal immigration, illegal residents? And I think to answer that dilemma, that question that just seems so bizarre, we have to look to who benefits, what the Romans called cui bono. To whom is it of a good thing? To whom is it of an advantage for all of these people to come across the southern border illegally? Let's start with the government of Mexico and the governments of Central America. Why would they want young men, mostly 70% of the people who cross illegally in the last 5 years have been young men? Why would they want to take their most productive, most healthy, strongest age group, cohort, and just send them out? It makes no sense. Especially their own demographies are starting to themselves stabilize. I think one reason is that young men tend to be the most opinionated, they tend to be the most muscular, they tend to be the most volatile. And all of these countries are not constitutional governments, with very few exceptions. And they're not fair and equitable societies. And they do not have a Bill of Rights. And they have endemic discrimination against indigenous people. And so one way of ensuring stability to the government elite in Mexico City, or the government elite in particular capitals of Central America, is to say, you know what? Don't march on Mexico City, march on Texas. It's a safety valve, in other words. But even more importantly is this idea of remittances. It's kind of a fancy word. It means that when you leave your country, you go to the United States, you earn money, and you send money back. At first it was quite small in the 1960s, 1970s, but when you have 20 million people residing here illegally, and you have probably another 10 million who are legal residents, and you're up to nearly 40 million people of various statuses that were not born in the United States. And I will say that in my state of California, 27% of the population was not born in the United States. Many of them send wages back to their home country. In the case of Mexico, that is a staggering amount of about $35 billion a year. In the case of all of Central America, it's about $30 billion. Think of it. $65 billion leaves the United States, and it becomes the largest source of foreign exchange for the governments south of the border. It gets worse than that in a way, or more ironic, or more deleterious to the American citizen, because to free up that money from impoverished people, that means they have to go work in a meat plant, they work as waiters, they work as cooks, and then they send $200 or $300 a week. But who makes up the difference? Who supplies the subsidies so that can free up that cash? The taxpayer does, the citizen does. So to answer our question, the governments of Mexico and Central America have a large role to play in illegal immigration that diminishes the sanctity of citizenship for Americans. So to answer our question, the governments of Mexico and Central America have a large role to play in illegal immigration that diminishes the sanctity of citizenship for Americans.
So yeah, that's what that is, These people of the foreign governments are the ones that are benefiting.